You cannot have Thanksgiving dinner without desserts. The holidays are almost here, and that means lots and lots of sweet treats. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna love these recipes. Hey y'all, I'm Valerie, and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I'm sharing 5 of the best ever Thanksgiving desserts. They're easy to make and absolutely delicious. Now let's go ahead and get started. This caramel apple poke cake is one of our favorites. You're going to need a 21-ounce can of the caramel apple pie filling. And I just stuck my knife down into the can there just to give them a rough chop. That way there weren't any huge pieces of apple in the cake. And if you can't find the caramel apple pie filling, the regular will do just fine. I added those to a large bowl, along with 1/4 cup of milk and 2 eggs, and also a teaspoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I was out of the good stuff, but this imitation works just fine too. Now I'm going to add in a box of yellow cake mix, but if you wanted to change it up, you could also do spice cake mix or vanilla. You could even do butter pecan. I think that would be really good. And I'm just using my electric mixer to mix it all until it's well combined. I'm making this in a 9x13 baking dish, and I did spray that with nonstick spray. I poured in that cake batter and then used my spatula to spread it all out. Now this bakes at 350 for 25 to 35 minutes. And while that cake is in the oven, I'm going to work on the topping. In a small bowl, I added a 12-ounce jar of caramel sauce. And I did reserve just a tiny bit of that to drizzle on top. And to that caramel sauce, I added a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. And I wanted to make sure I got every last drop out of there, because that stuff is pretty delicious. Now just give that a really good mix. I set that caramel sauce to the side while I got the cake out of the oven. And you don't have to let this cool, because you do still want it a little warm. I'm just poking holes all in the top of that cake. And you can use the end of a wooden spoon, but the mixer attachment works just fine too. Now you're going to pour over all of that yummy caramel sauce. I just use my spatula to spread that out and try to work that sauce down into those holes. I did let it sit for a few minutes to let it all sink in. And this is not in the recipe, but before I added the whipped topping, I decided to add another can of apple pie filling. And I did chop that up like I did the other one. And after you get that all spread out, you're going to sprinkle over 1 cup of butterscotch chips. You could also do the caramel bits too, but I just didn't have those on hand. Then you're going to spread on an 8-ounce container of whipped topping. Just try to do it gently, that way you don't move everything around underneath. Now to finish off this delicious cake, I'm drizzling over that caramel sauce that I reserved from earlier. And it don't have to be fancy, just drizzle that stuff on. I also added a few more butterscotch chips. And that's it. This cake is even better if you can be patient and let it chill overnight. But my family couldn't wait to dig into it. This is one of the best poke cakes that I have ever had. It would be perfect for the holidays, and I think your family would really enjoy it. I just had to throw in a French silk pie for all you chocolate lovers. In a medium-sized saucepan, I added 1 1/3 cup of sugar, along with 4 eggs. Now just cook those on medium-low heat. And you do want to whisk pretty constantly here. And just do that until it reaches 160 degrees. You'll know it's ready when it coats the back of a metal spoon. And now for the chocolate. I added 8 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. You do want to chop it up, that way it completely melts. And I also added 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Stir that until it's completely melted, remove it from the heat, and then let it completely cool. I'd say for about 45 minutes. Now over to my stand mixer, I added 2 sticks of room temperature butter, and I let that mix until it was light and fluffy. And if you're new, I always have the recipe either linked are typed out in the description box below. That way you don't miss anything. And when that chocolate mixture is completely cool, you can go ahead and add it to the butter. This stuff right here reminds me of chocolate sop. Well, that's what we call it. Most of you call it chocolate gravy. We eat it for breakfast. Oh yes. You'll have to let me know below if you want that recipe. And now I'm just mixing that until it's well combined. And that butter don't always get mixed in there, so just make sure you stop halfway through and use your spatula to scrape down the bottom of the bowl. I took a little shortcut on this recipe because that's what I do. If you want, you can whip up 8 ounces of heavy whipping cream and add in 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar and then fold that into the chocolate mixture, but I just added in an 8-ounce container of whipped topping. Just try your best to gently fold this in. That way it stays light and fluffy. You'll know it's well combined when you don't see any more streaks. Now you're going to pour all that filling into the crust of your choice. You can do a graham cracker crust or a chocolate one, but I'm using a refrigerated pie crust that I did fully bake and then I let it completely cool. And my pie plate is a deep dish, so if you do a graham cracker crust, make sure you get that 10-inch one. Now you're going to need to let that chill for at least 4 hours. And I know that's hard to do, but be patient, it's worth it. This pie is so amazing and it's actually pretty easy to make. And if you love chocolate, I can already tell you you're going to love this one. It sets up so good. I like to top it with a little whipped cream. If you've never had a pumpkin crunch cake, now is the time to try it. To get started, in a large bowl, I added a 15-ounce can of pure pumpkin puree, not the pie filling. I'm also adding in 1 can of evaporated milk, along with 1 cup of granulated sugar, 4 eggs, and for the spices, I added 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice and 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Oh, and also half a teaspoon of salt. Now you're just going to mix that until it's well combined. And the batter should end up looking very runny. Then I just poured that batter into a greased 9x13 baking dish. Now you're going to need 1 box of yellow cake mix. I'm using a butter golden, but either one will work for this recipe. And you're just using the dry cake mix here. Just sprinkle it evenly over the top of that pumpkin mixture. Next, I'm just sprinkling over 1 cup of chopped pecans. And now, on top of that, you're going to drizzle over 1 cup of melted butter. And yes, that's a lot of butter, but come on now. It's the holidays. Y'all gotta indulge a little. Don't you agree? I'll let this bake at 350 for 60 to 80 minutes. You're just looking for that middle to be completely set. Mine took about 75 minutes. And if you can, you do want to try to wait at least 15 or 20 minutes before serving it. That way it has a chance to set up a little bit more. I like to top it with either some whipped cream or vanilla ice cream. This cake is easy to make and it's so delicious. And here's a classic sweet potato pie. I roasted 2 large sweet potatoes for this. I removed the skin and then I pureed them in my food processor until they were completely smooth. I ended up with 2.5 cups, which is perfect. To that puree, add half a cup of granulated sugar, half a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of melted butter, half a cup of heavy cream, and 2 beaten eggs. And for the spices, I keep it simple and add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And I was not paying attention here and I added an extra teaspoon, so I had to scoop that out. And lastly, I added 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You can mix this by hand or I use my electric mixer. You just want to mix it until it's well combined. Now you're going to set that to the side for a minute. I'm using a 9-inch deep dish pie plate for this, along with a 9-inch refrigerated pie crust. All you have to do is unroll it and press it into the dish. Now you're going to pour in all of that sweet potato filling. Then smooth it out a little, and it don't have to be perfect. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for 45 to 50 minutes, or until that middle is completely set. I think I let mine go a little too long though. That's how I ended up with all those cracks. I did leave mine sitting out on the counter until it was completely cool. Then it was ready to serve. You can also make this ahead of time and freeze it. Then when you're ready for it, just pop it in the refrigerator the night before. That way it can thaw out and then it'll be ready the next day. This pie is so easy to make, and I love sweet potatoes. So this right here is one of my favorites. This banana pudding poke cake is one of my family's favorites. You'll need 3 large ripe bananas. They'll need to be mashed, and you can do this with a fork, or you can do like me and just use your electric mixer. Just use whatever you have to get them mashed. Now you're going to add in 3 eggs and 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. I'm just giving it a quick little mix here. Now you're going to add in 1 box of yellow cake mix. You could also do a vanilla one too. Now mix that until it's very well combined. By the way, if you hadn't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Okay, now you're going to need a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, and I did grease mine and I sprayed it with nonstick spray. Better to be safe than sorry. Then you're going to pour in that cake batter and smooth it out as evenly as possible. Now you're going to bake this at 350 for anywhere from 30 to 35 minutes, or until a toothpick comes out clean. And when it's done, you can go ahead and poke holes all in the top of that cake. Now set that to the side so we can start on the pudding. In a large bowl, I added 2 of the 3.4 ounce boxes of instant banana pudding, along with 3 cups of milk. Then you're going to mix that until just combined. And I added that milk a little at a time, just so it didn't splash everywhere and make a complete mess. Just mix it until all the lumps are gone. You're not looking for it to be thickened yet. We still want it pretty runny, that way it can go into those holes. Now we're going to pour that mixture onto the cake, and at first I'm only adding half. That way I can work some of that down into those holes. Then you can go ahead and pour on the rest of that pudding and spread it out into an even layer. I covered this with some plastic wrap. I did let it cool off, and then I put it in the refrigerator to chill for about 4 hours, or until that pudding is set. The cake is completely set now. I'm ready to serve it, so I'm going to go ahead and add the topping. I sliced up 3 large bananas and placed them evenly over the top of that pudding. Now I've got 1 box of vanilla wafers here. I did reserve 15 for the topping, and then I completely crushed the rest. Then you're going to sprinkle them over the bananas. You just want to try to spread those out as evenly as possible. I've got an 8-ounce container of whipped topping, and I'm just spooning that over the top there. Just add it on in small dollops there and spread it out. I find it easier to work from the middle out. You just don't want to move all those vanilla wafers and those bananas around. Now I'm topping it with those reserved vanilla wafers. And I did save just a tiny bit of those crushed ones to sprinkle on top. This banana pudding poke cake is so good. It's easy to make. You can make it ahead of time, and it's perfect for holidays for those of you that are not crazy about all the pumpkin. And this is one of the kids' favorites. It is absolutely delicious. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You may also like these. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more easy recipes, and I will see you in the next one.